So you want to practice singing every day this year? Well, there are some key mistakes that well-meaning singers, my past self included, almost always make when they're trying to get into a regular practice habit. And I don't want you to make them again. So the first thing that you need to acknowledge is that you are trying to establish a habit. You want to be able to get to the point where you don't even have to think about it. It is just what you do. You are a singer who practices every day, almost on autopilot. You don't want to have to rely on willpower or motivation or everything going right in the day in order for it to happen. So when you're trying to establish a new habit, your instinct probably is to set the bar really high because you're excited. You want to make fast progress. And at this stage, you're probably really motivated, say the start of the year, for example. So in singing, this looks like creating a full 1-hour practice session that is complete with warm-ups and exercises that target exactly what it is that you want to improve and several songs to dive deep on, yeah? And that is great, except when you try to start here. Because you might get through a week or two of this, especially if it's at the beginning of the year and you might be on holidays from work or you have extra help at home with the kids. But the second that life gets in the way of that, you're going to miss a day because you can't find the time, or you forget the next day because it isn't already an established habit. And you start to then get down on yourself because you've failed. Does this sound familiar? Because it definitely does to my past self. So the pivot that I really need you to make is to set the bar very, very low. And I know that your inner high achiever is really going to hate this, so stick with me because we're going to settle them in a second. But it's important that we take into consideration that our brains actually don't like change. They like repetition. They like things to stay the same. They like to know who it is that we are and for that to stay stable. So in order to not set those alarm bells off, we actually need to go in increments. And the other reason that this is important and supportive is because it eliminates friction. So a lot of the time we will set a plan in motion without acknowledging all of the little things that might get in the way of it. What I mentioned about time constraints is one friction point. So if you try to do a 1-hour plan every day, that is going to become problematic when you have a really full plate that day, and you can't find the time. Other friction points that can create issues or challenges for singers are our environment. So if you worry about being too loud for your neighbours, or if you are feeling self-conscious that other people are home when you are singing, not feeling like we have the right equipment. So this is especially if you are recording or if you're someone who likes to use scales, for example, and you have a very specific thing in mind, but you don't have that yet, that is going to be a friction point. Feeling confused about what to practice. Now, this is a really big one that can keep us stuck for a very long time because we're not sure what tools or techniques or approaches to use to get us where we want to go. Luckily, I created a mini challenge inside my new free community, The Green Room, to give you very specific ideas of what to practice and how to reach your singing goals. So I've put a link below. You can create a login and get started and get support. So you're going to share with me what it is that your goal is. We are going to shrink that down to what is the first baby step, and I can then give you ideas about very specific exercises or approaches to move you in that direction. So the link is below. And the fourth friction point that I see commonly crop up is if your experience of singing practice has always been painful and frustrating instead of enjoyable and interesting. That is going to create resistance within you. You're not going to want to do it because it's something that doesn't taste that good. It's something that doesn't feel that good when you do it. So this is for those of you whose inner perfectionist is pretty mean in practice sessions. This is something that you are trying to support yourself through, working with your inner critic and softening that voice. And if this is you, again, please get yourself into the green room, because I created an audio for singers to support you right before you go into practice, to get you into the right mindset of compassion and curiosity and reignite that fire in you for learning and growing as a singer. And it lives in that free community space. The link is below to join us. Make sure that you nab that. So we need to remove as much friction as humanly possible, because life is going to life. It's going to get in the way. But if you prepare for it early on, you are much more likely to be able to build a sustainable habit. So if you feel like you need certain equipment, prioritize getting that before rolling into your practice plan. If it is your environment, come up with a plan, come up with a strategy to counteract that friction. Maybe you ask the person that you live with if there is a certain time of the day that suits for you to practice. Maybe they go to the gym at a certain time and you can do it then. Or you can sing into a pillow when you're doing loud, belty practice when your neighbors are at home. Yeah. And as another example, one of my students was worried about annoying her neighbors and was also in the mindset of having to do all the right things when it comes to practice. And so this created this very long, overwhelming list, and I knew that that was going to be a source of friction. So we made her very first baseline for practice that she sings one song in the car on the way to or from work. So we eliminated the friction of I need a lot of time to practice and I feel uncomfortable practicing at home. Now for the eye-rolling high achiever in you, this does not mean that you can't add on when you are in the flow. So in that example, if my student ticks off her one song in the car and then wants to dive into tongue tension release exercises or playing with vowel modification after that, then she can go for it. But we need to set the bar low for success, because then you have the best chance at establishing the habit of I sing every day. And I'm of the belief that all singing is practice. Yes, that's not deep technical practice until she starts to add on from there, but it's so important that we establish that baseline first. Once that habit is established, that is, that it happens on autopilot, rain, hail, or shine, then you can up the ante. So for my student, for example, she might add 2 warm-up exercises, for example, onto her plan. Then get used to that and add again when that is the new default. For those of you who are still feeling uneasy because it sounds so slow, I want you to remember every time that you've gone at a goal like a bull out of a gate, so high intensity, big commitment early on, and then become overwhelmed or disinterested and given up. Slow and steady means we allow it to be sustainable and we get this compounding progress. It also allows us to build trust in ourselves that we are going to do what we say we'll do. We are who we say that we are. So a committed singer, for example. And it builds our relationship with our voice, getting to know it better by interacting with it daily. So again, if you would like help getting clarity on what your goal is, minimizing that to the very first baseline, and getting ideas of specific exercises, tools, and approaches to use to get you where it is that you want to go, please make sure that you join my free community space, the Green Room, so that I can support you one-on-one in there. We have a beautiful community already, and I am absolutely loving the questions. There is so much that you're able to learn from other people's questions already. So make sure that you hit the link below this video, jump in there, and I can't wait to help you out.